Good morning, everybody. What's going on? This is your boy Town Biz. So, boy, it's been a very interesting week. As usual, black people make the world go round as far as subject matter go and content goes. Whether it was, you know, the phenomenon of the movie Sinners and people telling Ryan Coogler who he should have in the movie and all that kind of stuff too. We all know the well documented situation with Shannon Sharp and then basically Sador Sanders falling out of the first round all the way to the fifth round. But we're going to talk about Sador Sanders. I got like about uh, 8 or 9 minutes to spare. So everybody has an angle with this. Everybody has their theory or thesis on what went on with Sador Sanders. And I spoke about it, what I think it was. Some people saying it's just flat out racism to where everybody was like, well, America's fearful of the confident black man and all this kind of stuff. And well, Eli Manning did it. So why is everybody upset about Sador Sanders? And I was talking to a lot of different people about it. I talked to, quite a few people, and everybody has a different scenario on what transpired with Sador Sanders this past weekend. I already gave my take. So I I think about what happened with Sador Sanders compared to what Jamie Foxx said on Any Given Sunday. I really liked Any Given Sunday, even though a lot of people thought it was a little too far fetched, but I thought it was some authenticity to it, you know, when basically it kind of reminds me of what's going on with Sador Sanders. That he came out the gate acting like Willie Beeman, when he was saying, when he was getting, according to him, unfairly criticized. He was saying, well, it might be racism or it could be placism. A brother got to know his place. Um, I'm going to keep it 100. At the end of the day, you have to realize when you want to talk about Eli Manning compared to Sador Sanders, I mean, it is the obvious elephant in the room, skin tone. But at the end of the day, Archie Manning, he was a quarterback. He was a mediocre quarterback. But then you had Peyton, who was establishing himself as a quarterback, who was a superstar. You know, he was a superstar in his own right. So then you had Eli Manning. But the thing is with Eli Manning worked out. Eli Manning worked out with everybody and he did the combine. Where Sador and his father were sitting up there talking about, well, I'm not going to go to this team. I'm not. You have to understand there's always a different set of rules. And then you have to understand the NFL is still a good old boy league. And then I'm going to tell you something that's really important when it pertains to the NFL, and in particularly with black men. They love the white savior theme. Why you think they were so high on that movie The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, in which she won an Oscar, but the actual guy said that movie was a fabrication. He said it was. He said he would have got to the league with or without her, but of course they had to make her as the white savior. So a lot of times these dudes like to disguise. See, a lot of times when it pertains to racism, racism is so deep. A lot of people like to disguise their racism by, doing these type of things. Hey, I'm not a racist. Look what I've done for this guy. Look what I've done for that guy. So the thing is, and people felt like, well, Sador, he doesn't need money because he has an NIL deal, and I heard he has a couple of endorsements. So they love this theme about, getting a black man out the ghetto, and they love it when these dudes say, when these dudes break down crying, even if they don't go to the draft. I'm gonna buy my mama a house. I'm gonna buy my daddy a Cadillac. So when you are in Sador's situation where basically you come for money, it's really no story there to a certain degree. Even though they don't like guys that they may like a guy that may have a little controversy surrounding him, but as long as it's not extreme. Because once again, they love that white savior theme. You know, Jerry Jones is the epitome of being somebody's white savior. So and then he fools people. That's why Jerry Jones is allowed to get away, do, and say some of the things he said. Because Sador is no way he should have failed that far down the I mean that far down in the draft. But they felt like, okay, we're not going to have a LeBron James in the NFL because it's more about the shield than the individual. And they had to basically show Shedeur Sanders, you're not bigger than the game. You could be replaced, or you may not even get a spot here because there's too many people lined up to be in the position that you are, in. Why you think, let me explain something to y'all. Who you think they talking to when they say, oh, it's a privilege to play in the NFL, not a right? Just like they say about driving. Driving is a privilege, not a right. And yes, he could have all the confidence in the world, but sometimes, like I said, clout, you have to, for real, you have to make stuff happen and do things to build up clout. Whether we like LeBron James or not, he did perform. So he did build up his clout. But then again, he had a hype machine behind him, you know. And then the thing is with Shedeur versus Eli Manning, well, this wasn't a quarterback friendly draft. It was just really Cam Ward and then basically everybody else and then him. You have to understand the draft that Eli Manning was involved in X amount of years ago. You had quarterbacks that you knew was going to go in the first round. You had Ben Roethlisberger, you had Phillip Rivers. So it would be easier to move somebody like Eli Manning. And let's not make it look like Eli Manning didn't pay a price for what he did. And I'm just keeping it 100. I'm not defending Eli Manning. I'm just telling the truth. Eli Manning was excessively criticized. Never mind the good games he would have. Anytime he would have a game where he threw multiple, I'm telling you, Eli Manning had a up and down, what I'm saying? He had an up and down rapport with the media. There were people that would always rip him to shreds. Even though this dude won 2 Super Bowls and he was a Super Bowl MVP in both of those games, you see what they did to him. You see what they did to him when it was time to put him in the Hall of Fame. He didn't get in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, and this was a mediocre year to put a mediocre year for him to get into the Hall of Fame. He was the best player available on the first ballot to get put in the Hall of Fame, and they said no. And then he may have some trouble for the next few years. He may not get in there for a while. So let's not make it look like Eli Manning didn't pay a stiff price for what he did. But at the same time, if you Shedeur Sanders, you have to understand it's a different set of rules. Your father was a quarterback. He wasn't a quarterback. So do I believe that there's some racism behind it? Yeah, absolutely. Do I believe that that's entirely what the situation is? No. They just don't like dudes talking like that. They just don't like dudes having that type of mentality. And I'm gonna just say this again. Um, as far as Deion go, I'm not the biggest fan of Deion Sanders, and I blatantly said why I'm not a big fan of Deion Sanders. And to a certain degree, I wasn't rolling with Shedeur, based off how, the thing with Ryan Garcia. And then Ryan Garcia didn't come out and say anything about Shedeur dropping it, in the draft. So that was my stand. So I'm just keeping it a buck. But for right now, that's all I wanted to say. You know, the NFL and these owners, they have a white savior complex. They love to be patted on the back. Look what I did. Look what I did for this guy. Look what I saved him from this. I saved him from that. But when you come from somebody like Sador's environment, he came with money. He came for money. So it's not a theme to him. It's not, even though I don't understand what's the difference between a black person, coming up and having money versus what I'm saying, a white person. But then I have to call some hypocrisy in the black community, because at the same time, we look down on black people that come with money. We're always talking about this, oh, well, I got it from the mud and all this kind of stuff. You don't understand the struggle and all that kind of stuff. You don't know where I'm coming from. Listen, racism exists whether you a black person with money or a black person without money. There's no price tag on racism. So I just wanted to say that. But nevertheless, appreciate you guys. I got to start work. Anyway, this your boy Town. I'm out.